My first job out of Harvard Business School was to sell people on treating their high blood pressure. How do you convince people to treat a disease that's not curable? Treat a disease that requires behavior change, no salt, lose weight, all those things, and keep them on that regimen. That's a tough sell. You learn how to sell high blood pressure treatment. You learn how to sell. You learn how to market. Sad news. I just heard that Sean Connery died yesterday. As you get older, you forget who's alive and who's dead because the news just keeps coming in. But Sean Connery's a big loss. He was James Bond, right? None of the other people who played James Bond came close. Maybe Daniel Craig comes closer, but it was Sean Connery. I've always dreamed of being in a bar somewhere, sipping the driest martini in the world, and somebody comes up to me and says, "Who are you?" And I look at him and I say, "Bond, James Bond." But that didn't happen. And short of that, I decided on a 50-year career in marketing. And it's been a great career. So in a way, I'm not surprised that Firms Consulting has come back and said, let's do another series of interviews about your life in marketing and about whatever you've learned through that life. I'm not a fast learner, but I've had the benefit of a wonderfully varied career in marketing over 50 years, and believe it or not, some lessons have emerged. So we're back in this wonderful house. This is the house that Pamela and I bought 25 years ago. It's a classic mid-century modern house that Philip Johnson, not James Bond, Philip Johnson designed. It looks like a Bond house in some ways, though, I'm back with my favorite morning beer, which is part of our diet, and we swear we lose weight on it. And I'm back to tell, I guess, more stories. I'm going to tell some of the same stories I told in the first season of these interviews, but with a little bit more elaboration, because between when we did them last year and now, I wrote a book. I was inspired by the interviews. That focused my attention on what the broader themes of my career in marketing have been. And by far, the biggest theme is, how do you sell ephemeral things? How do you sell the soft stuff? Because my career, not by plan, has been selling soft stuff. I mean, I headed marketing for United Way of America, the biggest charity we have. How do you sell philanthropy? More important, how do you sell secondary demand for philanthropy? It's easy enough to give somebody to give. Anybody will give. But how do you go after the bigger givers who think seriously about philanthropy? My first job out of Harvard Business School was to sell people on treating their high blood pressure. How do you convince people to treat a disease that's not curable? Treat a disease that requires behavior change, no salt, lose weight, all those things, and keep them on that regimen. That's a tough sell. You learn how to sell high blood pressure treatment. You learn how to sell. You learn how to market. And then I was head of marketing and publications and brand and all that stuff, a partner at McKinsey for 18 years. And later for 6 more years at the Boston Consulting Group. How do you sell top management on strategy consulting. How do you sell $1 million engagements? You know, engagements that cost $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a month. What are you selling? You know. So all of those things to me are ephemeral things. And as background, though, I got involved early on with social entrepreneurship because of an organization called Ashoka. And I saw young men and women using marketing to reconstruct the world, to make systems around education, healthcare, environment work better because they had a better idea of how the world should work. And it really was marketing. And then later on, after I retired from McKinsey and the Boston Consulting Group, I joined a firm called Tapestry, and we'll talk about them, who really figured out how to use marketing in multi-stakeholder environments. It's one thing to use marketing in relatively simple markets where there's a company, there's a competitor, and there's a customer. But what happens when you get all sorts of other players, regulatory agencies, government, patient advocates, environmental zealots, all those players are in the system too. Can marketing work there? And I think it can. And the experiences I've had in my last part of my career prove that to me. So it's been a pretty crazy career. I'm very fortunate to have had it and to have been relatively successful in it. So I'm not surprised that the first season of these videos that we did worked well, and I guess the feedback's been great. But this second season, we want to tell some of the stories in more detail, so the viewers can interpret them the way they want, and we want to get into some new territory at the same time. And there's a lot to talk about after 50 years, even if you're a slow learner, and I am. I think you were going to hear the book basically advances three broad messages. The first one is marketing is an intensely visual, actually physically visual exercise, but it's also a conceptually, there's a visualness that comes out of a conception. You have to have in your mind a market space and not a marketplace. This is not about, marketing, yes, it takes place in booths, in stores, in places, in computer stores, etc. But it takes place in the mind. And more importantly, it takes place in the mind. So you're going to hear, again, as you did last season, if you're watching this, that the market space and the marketer's ability to redefine that space, to see the space in its new dimensions, to bend the space, instead of this linearity, which you usually have with markets, where there's always a cost dimension and there's a quality dimension. What are those new dimensions that break you out, that unleash whole new markets where incredible amounts of value are bargained for and exchanged? So you'll hear that's the first big message that comes out of the book. The second one, and it shouldn't surprise you, is after my 50 years of marketing, if you become a marketer and you're good at it, you're going to have a great life. Barring health and other issues, you'll make money because marketing is really valuable and valued. It's distrusted at times, but valued. You'll have a great life. People will like you. Who likes an accountant? I'm sorry if you're an accountant and you're watching this, but marketing, they bring the energy up in a room. They should, and they bring the ideas up in a room. They make people think and get excited and aspire to do something new. So if you're young, I want to get a message out to young people that if you're thinking about a career and you're going into business school, the finance people will be there and they'll all be talking about how much money they're going to make and so forth. Think about marketing, because you can do a lot in terms of your personal career. And then the last message that'll be part of this season 2 of what we're calling the Bill Matassoni Show is marketing can really help us address a lot of complex, intransigent problems in the world. All of them part of complex systems that need to be redesigned. I'm going to argue that marketing is really systems redesign. The great marketers, the great social entrepreneurs, look at the system and say, who are the players? Why are they motivated to do what they do? How do we compensate them? And how do I put that system together so that there are levels of benefits and levels of achievement that we get to? The flows into those levels work better. And the flows, we're talking about environmental improvement, we're talking about health improvement, we're talking about better education, all these complex systems. Levels and flows. What are the policies that lead to better decisions about those flows? That's what a system is. It's not a computer program. It's a system. And you can do a lot of systems redesign on the back of an envelope. You just need to think in terms of systems. And I believe marketers they have a perspective that's as close as you get to systems redesign as we can get today. So in the season 2 here, we're going to talk about those 3 things. Marketing as a dimensional redesign of the world. Marketing is a great career, and marketing is a way to fix the world. One last thought, though. Since we did this first series of videos, in addition to writing the book, which I really enjoyed, I was surprised. And it made me think my life actually adds up to something. I didn't plan on it adding up to things. And by adding up, I mean if I take all the different thoughts that I've just gone over, it comes out fairly coherently. One thing surprised me, though. My wife, Pamela, and I bought a new place down in Florida, in West Palm. And moving down there has been a great experience. If you spend all your life in one geography, and even though I traveled the world with McKinsey, your perspective's like this. And you're happy with it. We're happy with our lives. West Palm's a whole different deal. The geography, the demographics, the perspectives that emerge from that. And it really helped me, with the book, but it made me realize what I sort of hinted at in the first series of interviews we did, which is if you're going to change the dimensions of the marketing space in which you're operating, and really stress a whole different tier of benefits and ideas, you better change your identity. If you want the marketplace or market space to be different, you have to be different. And that comes down to identity. And I plan on talking a lot more about identity and how hard it is to change your identity. Because if you don't, guess what gets lost? Integrity. There will not be a lineup between the truth of who you are and the truth of what you want to be in this new marketing space. So that's it. Let's go off onto season 2 of the Bill Matassoni Show. I said, stop writing these papers, stop debating these ideas in a little room, and instead reorganize the way you assign people to client engagements so that the ideas get developed in a young man or woman's head